Welcome to New York Got Game.
What's good, everybody? Happy NBA trade deadline day, and it has been an eventful one. It's your boy Dexter Henry here for the New York Post, New York Got Game, and we got to get right into things because it's been an eventful one for the New York teams. The Knicks making some moves, the Nets also making some moves, so it's just going to be really eventful. We've got a great show going on today. First time that we are doing this. We have a bunch of guests, and leading off, my first guest, we're going to talk Knicks. We got to talk Knicks off the top right now. My first guest is from Knicks Fan TV. You see him as a host on there. My man representing East Harlem, JD, in the building. JD, what's up?
How you doing, Dexter? Thank you for having me. A very eventful day.
Yeah, an eventful day. I had to have you here for sure because there's so much going on. And I have to really ask you this because I want to get your reaction to this deal, okay? And we got to get the details right with this deal. Knicks, they make their big move today, and the way this deal came down was interesting because you first heard about them trading away Quentin Grimes for Alec Burks. Then it became a larger deal. So just so everybody knows, the Knicks trade away Quentin Grimes, Evan Fournier, Malachi Flynn, Ryan Arcidiacono, and 2 second-round picks. They get Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks from the Pistons. JD, when this news came down, what was your reaction to all of this?
Well, when the first tweet, it was Grimes for Burks, and I was gonna panic. I was gonna say, wait, where are we going here? But then as more details were presented, I think this is a very good deal. You know, emotionally, it hurts to lose Grimes. You know, a homegrown first-round pick for the New York Knicks, but overall, when you look at what you're getting here, you could see the vision of the team. They are trying to surround Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle with as much spacing and versatility as possible. You have two 40% three-point shooters between Alec Burks and Bojan Bogdanovic. Bojan being a 20 points per game scorer for the Detroit Pistons this season. He's 6'8". Burks is around 6'5". So you have the ability with Burks to have a backup guard, a decent shot creator, and an elite three-point shooter as well as with Bojan. So you get enough depth. That's two players as well. And most of all, Dexter, you did all this without giving up a first-round pick. And now we're dating back to even the Raptors trade. You put that all together, the Knicks have now added OG Anunoby, Precious Achiuwa, Bojan Bogdanovic, and Alec Burks without giving up a single first-round draft pick.
So that was the thing. I saw you tweet that out, and I had to repost it. And I think it's crazy in a way. Well, don't tell me in a way. You tell me this: how much credit on this reshaping of this team in this season do we give to Leon Rose? Because I think to some degree you have to be very impressed with the fact they've reshaped this team. They haven't lost the identity. And as you said, they've only given up second-round picks, no first-round picks. The Knicks still have a ton of flexibility here. Does that excite you, JD?
It does, because in one season, you even want to add Obi to that equation. You're talking about giving up the kids, almost all the kids in one season, right? And so that tells me this GM is adapting to, as more time goes on, he's looking at the way this team is evolving, and he's reacting to that. And so first it was the OG trade that was early, right? So now he sees after, okay, you know, Knicks are 16, 17-2, whatever their record is after the trade. And then you look at now close to the deadline, you saw that Laker game, right? You saw that strategy. It's only the regular season, but these things in the playoffs do pop up even if you're healthy, right? Because Jalen Brunson is your best player. Teams are going to come up with different creative defenses. You want to be equipped for that moment. And so now acting with that and adding Burks and Bojan, continuing to give a guy. And I think this shows respect to Jalen Brunson. How about that? Because, you know, we talk about where if the Knicks believe that this guy's a superstar, the front office usually acts like it. And Leon Rose is certainly acting like he believes Jalen Brunson can give the Knicks a legitimate chance to be a contender. So I like the way that little by little he's been adding to the roster while also keeping the mission at hand, which is to get that big superstar, and they still have the draft capital to do that. So I think it's very competitive in the way that he's doing it, because he's trying to do two things at the same time: compete, get players, while still have enough chips to make the big deal.
I feel like he's doing a pretty good job of it, at least to this point, right? We got to give him credit for that. He's doing a pretty good job of it here. I think the thing, anytime there's a trade, and we're talking with JD of Knicks Fan TV, we see everybody who's there in the chat. Thank you for watching on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you're watching. We appreciate you. Hit that like button. Send us your questions, your comments. We will get to you for sure. JD, the thing about this, after all trades, you know how this goes. Everybody wants to know, okay, are the Knicks a better team today than they were 24 hours ago, than they were a couple months ago? I think it's been clear to how they've played since then, but are they a better team now after acquiring Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks?
I think they're without a doubt a better team. Now, if we look at fully healthy, you're talking about having options everywhere, Dexter. You're talking about now, there's going to be an increasing expectation on the head coach to now figure out different lineups, because even without Randall and OG at this point, there's still enough depth to where Tibbs, the next time that these guys are available, he can start Bojan if he wants. If he wants Josh Hart to go back to the bench and go back into his role, he can do that now with this trade. He doesn't have to wait for OG to come back. He doesn't have to wait for Randall to come back to do that. So imagine when they do, it's going to be a lot of versatility, a lot of depth. When we talk about getting into the playoffs, Dexter, if you don't have what the people say, the first option, the second option, the superstar A and the superstar B, what's the next best way to do it? Well, the next best way to do it is to have a deep team. And the Knicks have that now, where, to end this season, you don't have to play Brunson, 40 minutes. You don't have to play Randall 40 minutes. Whenever he comes back, you can use the rest of the season to get ready for the playoffs. And then when the playoffs arrive, you saw how some of these young players did not perform well in the big moment against the Cavaliers. You're adding more veteran players that you would think are going to be better equipped to handle that moment. And therefore, when the pressure arrives in the playoffs, I think the Knicks have a roster that's just better built for the moment.
I think that's a great point about some of the younger players. I know some fans, and I've seen it on Twitter, I've seen fans messaging me, other friends I have who are Knicks fans hitting me up saying, okay, we don't like the fact that we gave up some of our young players here. But I think when you look at the return of what they got for these young players, you can't really be mad about that. The other thing, JD, and you see this right here, my producer Ryan put up the lower third, everybody's going to want to know, are the Knicks a contender? Have they moved up to contender status? You said that they're a better team, but are they at that point where you can look at them as contending to get to an NBA Finals right now?
I think they're close. I think if your expectation is now that they should be in the Eastern Conference Finals, then the answer is yes. I mean, you only have to win 4 games once you get to that round. There's no more contending once you get to that point. Once you get to the ECF, the WCF, only 4 teams left in the NBA, in the whole league, and it's the first to 4. And I think if that's the conversation, the Knicks are certainly a contender. I think once you get there with the depth, they're going to be better equipped to beat a Boston Celtics team. And I specifically say the Boston Celtics because I think the Milwaukee Bucks have taken a step back. They're so desperate, Dexter. We talked about it backstage.
Yeah, we did.
That they traded for Patrick Beverley.
Right.
Doc Rivers back in, when he coached, he's trying to bring Patrick Beverley to Milwaukee. That's how bad their defense is. And Milwaukee hasn't played well. You look at the Cavaliers right now, the 2 seed. The Knicks are more physical than them. I think the Knicks are prepared to beat a team like that. And then the Philadelphia 76ers, we're waiting to see with Joel Embiid. And you've seen without Embiid, they don't look remotely competitive out there. At least without Randall and OG, you see the Knicks are still winning games. So what does that tell you about the prospects of the New York Knicks? So in conclusion, I expect them to be, honestly, in the Eastern Conference Finals. And once we get there, it's all about OG Anunoby versus Jason Tatum.
Oh, man. Here you see, JD, you're out here exciting.
Talking matchups already and everything.
Talking matchups already. I see what you're doing. I see how you're pumping up the fans. Let us know in the chat. Do you agree with JD? Are the Knicks, should the expectations be that they should get to the Eastern Conference Finals, specifically after this trade? Let us know. I got to ask you a couple more things before we let you go, JD. Do you feel like the injuries to Randall and OG, we talked about them getting healthy, are you concerned about these injuries that have been piling up for Knicks? And we got to add Jalen Brunson now, who tweaked his ankle the other night. Are you concerned about that? And did you think the Knicks made these moves that we saw today with those injuries in mind.
Okay, so let's go one by one. Josh Hart, I'm not concerned. He's not on the injury report. He's a tough guy. I think
Okay.
he'll be fine. Jalen Brunson, not concerned. He walked off, and all in all, I think he'll be fine. It's just more about managing him a little bit more to end the season. Although I don't know if he's going to allow that, because you don't think he sees he's an all-star. He's having a potential MVP season. And remember the dilemma with Joel Embiid in that Warriors game, where there's speculation that he pushed himself because of the whole rules of the 65 games. You don't think Jalen Brunson sees now, wait, I can be top 3 for MVP consideration. So there's going to be a little bit of personal thing there where he's going to want to push himself and play as many minutes as possible so he can have an outstanding season. So that'll be something the organization has to look at for him. So there's Brunson. Now, the two biggest concerns for me, OG Anunoby, really concerned, Dexter, very concerned. And I think it's interesting that they gave a description to the injury the day before the deadline. And there's been rumors about Burks, Bojan individually. We got them both. And you can make the case where you're going to start to look at it and say, wait, where's the minutes in terms of if they're healthy? Now that we got both of them, goes to show me that OG's going to be out a little bit longer than maybe we expect. Now they're declaring him out before even game days. Before he was day to day. And so now I think they're concerned because Bondy, and I'm not sure if you'll have Bondy as a guest today, but
Bondy's just to tease for the people. Stefan Bondy is coming up at 3 p.m. He'll be joining the show. So thank you for that plug there, JD. Appreciate that.
Yeah, he said something interesting, Dexter, where he said that, OG is the type of player that he's not going to get out there until he feels healthy. That gives me a little bit of Kawhi vibes in terms of say he comes back. He has 5-6 games where he's good. Elbow irritation, the spur irritation. What if he wakes up one day, he feels something? Is he going to say, I'm not playing today because I don't feel right? So I think there's a lot of gray area with the injury, whether you're going to go with the surgery or if you're going to manage it. You don't know how he's going to be managed the rest of the season. So them getting Bojan and Burks, I think, is the Knicks playing it safe just in case things go left. Things go unexpected with OG. And with Randall, there's not much more to say other than to wait and see. I mean, I like that. I see pictures out there on IG. He's been caught with some activities. He was watching a game with Carmelo Anthony, watching Carmelo Anthony's son. So him being active and posting on social media, having good spirits, tells me there's good signs that he feels he's going to be back. But until he's evaluated here in another week or so, we won't know for sure what's his prospects. I think he'll be back. But OG, to me, Dexter, is the biggest question mark because I think he's our most important player.
And I agree. And I think Knicks fans know who are watching here know the impact that OG has had since coming to this team. There's no doubt about that. What he does for the defense, what he means. You talked about who they can match up with in the playoffs. You play at Boston. If you're the Knicks, you love having OG there to throw on a Tatum, to throw on a Jaylen Brown. That really matters there. Got to ask you this, because now with this reshaped roster, there's 2 open roster spots, JD, that they can have. Do you think the Knicks should be aggressive in terms of the buyout market? And who are some players you would like to see them target, possibly in the buyout market?
They should, if, just for the simple fact that if you want to nitpick their roster in terms of just positional depth chart, they got Burks, who I think is going to take over some of that backup point guard duties, but he's still not like a natural point guard position. Yeah. He's more solid. He has nice ball handling skills. He can create, but not necessarily like a facilitator at the 1. So do you look at Kyle Lowry? Do you wait to see if Kyle Lowry becomes available? You lost Ryan Arcidiacono from Nova. Let's bring somebody else from Nova, right? Like the way that they've been doing it. So I look at Kyle Lowry as a possibility. I thought Gordon Hayward would be a possibility, but then he got traded today. So that looks like unlikely. Joe Harris got released today. So I think players you're going to start to see now after today, players start to look for buyouts. The Knicks should be in the market, but I would look at maybe a backup point guard for them to add here in the buyout market.
I know we still have some time, right? And the trade deadline coming up is 3 p.m., folks, 3 p.m. Eastern. Knicks already made a move. They've acquired Alec, Burks, Bojan Bogdanovic on the Knicks now. Out goes Grimes, Archie Diacono, Malachi Flynn, 2 second-round picks. You like that? Also, Evan Fournier. Sorry, I forgot to mention him in there. His expiring goes out there just to catch everybody up. Thank you for everybody for checking in. Would you like to see the Knicks make another move here before the deadline is over? Do you think this is it for them? Are you fine with that? How are you feeling about if this is it for the deadline? Are you cool with that?
This is it. I am perfectly fine with it. I wouldn't be surprised right before 3 o'clock if they're not doing it already. They tap in with the Raptors one last time to see, what it would take to get Bruce Brown, being that they gave up no, draft capital for Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks, and being that they've been in conversations with the Raptors all the way through last night, from my understanding, on Bruce Brown, as the Knicks went into today being prepared for all different scenarios. So I think if there is going to be a last-minute addition, I don't see anyone out there other than potentially Bruce Brown. The Raptors themselves have made trades today already, so I know they're looking to reshape their roster as they look to rebuild, and I'm not sure that Bruce Brown is part of that plan. So to me, it's either Bruce Brown or this is the roster for the rest of the season.
Speaking of Bruce Brown, there, JD, I don't know how you feel about this. I've been talking with some other people about this. Do you feel like he might be redundant if you get him on this roster? Because he kind of plays the same role as Josh Hart, not a great shooter from the outside, but definitely he's a Tibbs kind of player, right? Because he plays the defense, he's aggressive, everything of that nature. Do you think he's redundant if the Knicks get him, or is there a place for him on this squad?
I think he is. Only like sometimes you can have a roster of similar skill sets, but if they're different positions or different versatilities, it can work. But you already have Dante, who's 6'4".
Right.
You already have Josh Hart, who's 6'4". Now you're gonna add Bruce Brown, who's 6'4". So now not only are you adding similar skill sets there, Dante being the best shooter of the three, but these guys are all the same height and they play the same positions. And that's where the redundancy comes into play. And you going into the playoffs, you need physicality, you need wingspan, you need height, and you need more strength. Bringing in a Bruce Brown, you become a little bit more undersized. And although he's a solid defender, it's kind of like Dante at times, Dexter, where Dante's an active defender, but he struggles against stronger, bigger guards in the NBA. So now you're going to double that with Bruce Brown as well. I don't think the fit is great because of who else we have on the roster. And he's not a great shooter. He's shooting 33% from three last year, 35%, 33% this year, 35% last year. So he's doesn't do it for me.
I like Bruce Brown. I like Bruce Brown as a player, and I want to be clear for the fans out there. And I think in a perfect world, he fits on a lot of teams around the NBA. I'm just not sure he fits for this Knicks team. I want to mention somebody in the chat here brought up, I believe it was Stefan. Stefan here said Detroit just waived Killian Hayes. Would you take a look at him? I found that was interesting. That happened right before we just got on. Killian Hayes, is that somebody you'd want to take a look at for the Knicks?
Wow, and Killian Hayes was a player that I remember in the draft. A lot of Knicks fans thought we were gonna draft him.
Right,
He
back
was
in 2020. Yep.
Yeah, he was the 7th overall pick. He was in the running at that point when this front office was here. We were talking about the biggest need at that point was a point guard. So he was in play, but he was drafted ahead. I'm always interested to see if we were actually going to draft him. But he's 6'5". He's 22 years old. He would be one of those reclamation projects. He's not a great shooter. He hasn't shot, Dexter, over 30. He hasn't even reached 30% from three in his 4 seasons in the NBA.
Yeah.
I don't know that fits this roster. He's a big guard. He's not necessarily a fast or athletic guard. So there's some roster, clumsiness there when you everything from now on has to be predicated to me around Jalen Brunson. If it doesn't fit around Jalen Brunson, I'm not so sure I'm interested in that.
No, I like that. Appreciate that mention there in the chat about that with Killian Hayes. It's going to be interesting to see what other moves the Knicks potentially can make. I think the last thing for me here, JD, is when you look at the way this trade deadline went and they get these two players, and Alec Burks and Bojan Bogdanovic, so much of the talk, this, we've talked about this from preseason. You and I have been talking about this. Okay, when are the Knicks going to get a star? That's what all the fans are asking about. I think there's something to look at what the Knicks have done the last 3 seasons and then even going into this season. that they're setting up the culture for success down the road. Do you like where they are now in the position if it comes in the offseason for them to go and add a star? And then also going to ask you a question: who's that star that you want? Who's on the JD wish list as a star to come here to New York that fits? Because fit matters.
My wish list, it's funny. The star that I wanted, I felt was more realistic about 3 weeks ago when things did not look so great in Phoenix. And I started to look at the connections. I started to look at the fact that, a lot of people think because KD is there that it's not so realistic. I said, do you guys just forgot how the whole thing imploded in Brooklyn and everybody just left? Nobody cared about the next star. Like James Harden was the first one. Then KD and Kyrie, they said we're all gone. So things can quickly just change here in the NBA. And I just feel like the way the NBA scripted, isn't it meant for every offseason for something to happen? That's just part of the NBA script. It's part of the NBA entertainment. It's part of the NBA drama. Like it would just be so odd for us to have an offseason and no star player requests a trade. There's no moves. Like you don't see that happening. I mean, it's just meant to be, I think. So they're in a great opportunity here. I think they're banking on somebody disappointing in the playoffs. Somebody coming up short, whether it's Cleveland. So all these teams you see doing great, although today you may say, oh, that's unrealistic, JD. Let that team, let Cleveland be the second seed and let them get bounced out in the first round. Let's see if we're having the same conversations. Like these things are built up to then cause a whole different dynamic. So I think they're looking at some teams here that could disappoint in the playoffs and then hope that star player asks for a trade. They're just sitting in the wings and they're waiting to pounce.
Yeah, could be waiting to pounce. And I think the one thing, if you're a Knicks fan, the culture is good. They still have 8 first-round picks going forward, 9 second-round picks going forward. So a lot of assets to still trade. 2 draft picks coming up in this year's draft, depending to see what they do with them. So we will see what happens with that. And it's definitely good. You got a couple more minutes to rock with us here?
Yeah.
Okay,
Let me ask you something real quick.
Yeah, sure. Throw a question at me. I'm always for that. Yeah, we go.
Donovan Mitchell, because I know you asked me that question just now. I said Devin Burke. I didn't really name anybody else.
Right.
And I used the Cavaliers as an example of a team. But, I used to think that was more realistic. I'm not so sure even if the Knicks want to do that right now. What do you think about that?
I think that it's interesting where the Knicks are. Pause for cause. I remember I was in Vegas when Mitchell got traded. I remember watching you guys on KFTV when that happened. And, there was a lot of disappointment among Knicks fans, but the Knicks are in a completely different place. So I don't think what you're saying is unrealistic at all whatsoever. I think the Knicks can still be patient. I think they can still wait, like you said, and see who disappoints in the playoffs. Somebody will. It's going to happen, right? But the thing with that is you still have to end up trying to pick the right star. That still matters. JD, appreciate you, man, coming on and talking some Knicks hoops with me on trade deadline day. I know it's been a busy day for you. I know KFTV, you and the guys are going to be doing a lot of content coming up tonight and in the coming days. Appreciate you, as I said, man. We will talk again soon. And thank you, man. We'll talk.
Thank you, Dexter. Appreciate it. And keep doing the great work that you do.
Appreciate you, man. Salute to everybody in the chat. Thank you, JD. JD there with some talk about the Knicks. We are now going to talk about the Nets. And to talk about the Nets, I'm going to talk about it with my guy, longtime colleague, longtime friend, my guy, Brian Lewis, who covers the Nets for the New York Post. Brian, how you doing, man?
All right. How you doing?
Good. You said, all right. It's a busy day for you. I know you've been doing a lot, trying to figure out what's going on. I know it's been busy. I know it has been busy. So I got to ask you this first. Couple of moves for the Nets, right? A lot of talk was, what would the Nets do? Would they trade some of their wings? Would they move Spencer Dinwiddie? We saw 2 things happen. Roy ONeal goes to Phoenix in a 3-way deal. Spencer Dinwiddie is swapped for Dennis Schroeder in a deal there. Let's start with the Spencer Dinwiddie deal. I want to start with that one since it came down first, Brian. What did you make of that move? How does it help the Nets? I know Schroeder signed a 2-year deal before the start of this season, so he's another year left on his contract. Do you like this move for Brooklyn?
Well, I do. I think it's more, frankly, than you could have expected to get right now for Spencer. His market had been tepid, let's say. There wasn't a ton of interest. And, I mean, let's be fair. I get it that Spencer was going to defend both his play and his effort level and his engagement and all that on Twitter. But this is probably a situation where it had run its course. He's been a loyal servant for Brooklyn. He's had 2 tours of duties here. But at this point, it's probably best for all parties involved. And I'm not sure that you could have expected to get back a better return. And frankly, with Ben Simmons' health, and you never know when he's going to play, it's a really unnerving prospect to trade Spencer without having another point guard, unless you were going to start Dennis Smith for the rest of the year. And that's questionable. So, yeah, I think under these circumstances, getting back a guy similar age but cheaper, and similar talent level, that's the best return you were conceivably going to get for Spencer Dinwiddie.
What did you make of the deal with Roy ONeal, the 3-team deal with him going to Phoenix and Nets getting back 3 second-round picks? We saw a lot of talk about them trying to get rid of one of their wings, and trying to get back some assets. They do that here. Do you like moving off of Roy ONeal here, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote a little while ago that while I was not of the opinion that Royce was the most valuable of those 3 30-somethings, he was the one that they were closest to get value on. In other words, they had very high asks, very high for Dorian Finney-Smith. They had turned down 2 first-round picks for Dorian Finney-Smith last year at the trade deadline. Their opinion of him has only gone up. However, I think the offers that they were getting for him have gone down. So I didn't think they were going to get what they considered value at this point for Dorian. Now, I mean, we still have half an hour, so it's possible. But Royce, on the other hand, there had been offers that intrigued them. Now, frankly, Nasir Little was probably the one that I thought was going to come back. But if you're getting 3 second-round picks, I mean, let's be fair. That's what Buddy Hield got, right? I mean, the Pacers got 3 second-rounders for him. So this is a solid return. And you also have to bear in mind there are salary constraints here involved as well, right? So if you are not trading Nick Claxton, which I would think at this point they are not, right? If you are endeavoring to re-sign him in the summer, that's not going to be cheap or easy, right? So you do have to consider that, right? Thad is an $8 million expiring contract. So when you look at what Dennis is making next year, that's a considerable savings, right? So the way I'm looking at it, yeah, I mean, so far, these appear to be moves not just for this year, but also to enable you to make some moves in the summer that you want to make, like keeping Nick.
And it does appear, like you said, to be for the future. But I think the question that comes up, Brian, and you and I have spoke about this before, is what is the future for the Nets? What are they trying to do? Is this a team trying to build with or around Mikal Bridges? Do they want to tear this down? Do you think it's likely I know you said there's time till 3:00. We got about a little over half an hour. Do you think there's more moves? What's the direction of the Nets right now? What are they trying to do in terms of moving forward into the future?
Well, they have no interest in tearing it down to the studs. And I get it that there is a large allowed subsegment of the fan base that wants them to tear it down to the studs, right? They want Mikal Bridges gone. If you can get 4 first-round picks for him, if you can get 3 for Nick Claxton, they want it torn down. That is not the direction that they are going, for better or worse. So I think what you have to understand is this is not really a traditional rebuild in the way that, say, Oklahoma did it, or even the way Utah was doing it. This is going to be more of a retooling around Mikal Bridges. Now, when I say around Mikal Bridges, that does not mean, and I don't know why people can't understand this, but it does not mean that there is a mandate that he must be the best player on the team, or that they refuse to get a star because it will hurt Mikal Bridges' ego. That's not what anybody's saying. The point is he's going to be a foundational piece of that rebuild because his game, and part of the reason why so many teams covet Mikal Bridges, is that his game plays well in almost any system and off of almost any player. Yes. So there are a number of players that would be not only willing to play alongside him, but would like to play alongside him. So I think many of these first round draft picks that you have seen them acquire, right, are acquired with the idea that at some point they may not necessarily be made, but may be flipped and traded. Everything that they have said and done implies to me that this is a reset for 2025. And I haven't seen anything that's made me change my mind on that. Unless, like I said, a star could accelerate that process. If a star becomes available, whether that's Donovan Mitchell or somebody else, whether they become available in the summer or available next year's trading deadline, that could theoretically accelerate the 2025 timeline.
You brought me to my final question I had for you, Brian, which is that because another segment or portion of the fan base in Brooklyn will tell you, well, we wanted to see the Nets go get a star. DeJoun Murray was a name that was rumored, but you had wrote just a couple days ago that was not as likely for the Nets to see a star here at this trade deadline. Is star hunting something you expect them to do this coming offseason? Because I think you and I would say it's very not likely that a star comes available in the next 29 minutes for them or that they've been working on. But do you think that they will go star hunting this offseason for sure? And or are they going to be a little bit more patient, as you said, to that 2025 moment and say, all right, we're going to wait and see what the market's like that?
I think they would be patient unless they are hearing that a star is becoming available, right? I don't think they are endeavoring to beat the bushes and pry. I don't think they're focused on this player and they're saying we are going to pry this player off of that roster come hell or high water. I don't think that's going to be their MO. I think the MO is if somebody becomes available because, for example, if Donovan tells Cleveland, I'm not re-signing here. I get it. We're balling out and we had a good season last year, but I am not signing an extension in the summer. And then the Cavs get unnerved because they say, well, he can opt out. Now we have a problem. We have to cash this in. Of course, I think under those circumstances, if the player were interested in playing here or willing to play here, then yes, they would get involved. And that is a situation that conceivably could happen. But we've also seen that those things aren't instantaneous.
Right.
I mean, James Harden wanted out in the summer and didn't get traded till January. And I mean, he was acting a fool the entire time in Houston, trying to get out, trying to force a move. Right. And Kevin Durant wanted out in June and didn't get traded till February. Right. So even if that were the case, that's not a guarantee that somebody would get traded here in the summer.
Right.
I'm just saying I don't think they are actively star hunting. I think they are keeping their flexibility and they're keeping their powder dry in case a star becomes available.
Yep. All right. And that's a good move. Nets make a couple moves today. Maybe they make some more before the deadline. 27 minutes left till the deadline. That is Brian Lewis, the great Nets beat writer for the New York Post, my great colleague. Brian, great job. I know you have a busy final 27 minutes of this deadline, so we appreciate the time. I'll talk to you soon, man.
All right. Anytime. Thanks.
There you go. That is Brian Lewis once again. We're moving along with this trade deadline show. We're having such a great time. Thank you to everybody watching on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it these days. Appreciate that. But coming up next, I'm glad to have these two people joining me. Really good friends. One, I used to host a sports and hip hop podcast with my man, Brian Fonseca, does work for the New York Post, also working for the Action Network, and my good friend, Gerard Hector, podcaster, writer for True Hoop. You see him there. What's up, guys? How y'all doing?
Chilling.
Well, for the both of you, you guys know this day was busy because we all have a group chat together and we've been texting about everything that's going on. Brian sometimes keeps me on top of the stuff. Gerard, you're doing the same. I got to start off with this for both of you. Was there a move that shocked you today on the trade deadline? Was it the Knicks making their moves? Was it the Nets making their moves? Was it something else nationally that shocked you? What was your most shocking move thus far of today's trade deadline?
I'm gonna let B rock with that one first.
Go ahead, B.
Daniel Gafford going to the Dallas Mavericks was the one where I was like, oh, I did not see that one coming at all. Because the Knicks, they had to move Evan Fournier's contract. I felt like Quentin Grimes, I wasn't sure if he was in fact going to move, but looking back on the deal now, it makes sense that Knicks fans are saying, hey, they didn't give up a first. They did give up Quentin Grimes, which I would say is the equivalent of that, but still, all in all, maintain all their draft capital. And I think the Knicks have absolutely killed it from a front office standpoint. But I still think the Daniel Gafford one is the one that shocked me the most. It also tells you a little bit about Derek Lively and how they feel about maybe his health. And also going into the playoffs with the rookie center, not the easiest thing in the world. I think he's going to help there. They also got PJ Washington, which I think is going to be an interesting front court piece.
Moving off of Grant Williams, who had not really been playing well there in Dallas. They move off of Grant Williams to get PJ Washington. You like that move, Brian?
Yeah, I think PJ Washington, a little overrated, but I think he'll help more than Grant Williams was. And the Clippers were a team that I had heard also liked PJ Washington. So they were able to get him at the end of the day. So I think Dallas's front court looks better, which is something that Luka Doncic needs, and Kyrie Irving for as long as he's there. And the Knicks one was interesting as well, which I know we're going to talk about with Bojan Bogdanovic going there, who I think will help them. I'm skeptical on like how much Tibbs is going to actually like him from a defensive rebounding standpoint. Okay. But I think he's going to be a nice fit for them, as is Alec Burks. I mean, you know what Alex Burks does because he's been there already.
All right, so we're going to get into that. What about you, Gerard? Was there a surprising move for you here on the day in terms of the trade deadline, or were you kind of like, meh, it was all right?
I mean, you know me, I'm one to be very sort of like tepid about these kinds of things. And I'm kind of like, meh. I mean, really, like, here's the bottom line, right? Of any of these moves, what are the ones where you're like, okay, now this team is going to do much more in the postseason than what I had originally thought in their prior construction? And there's no one that's jumping out to me. I thought there were interesting things. For instance, it was interesting that Oklahoma City decided to not get off the pot and kick the can down the road a little bit further, right? Keeping that job security. Way to go, Sam Presti. Keep telling you, yeah, in 5 years, with all them picks will be really great. Guy's got job security for the next 30 years. I mean, I don't know. I mean, look, he could have moved 4 picks and they still would have had too many. But it is what it is. I love that Brian mentioned you guys mentioned the Grant Williams thing. Man, so this guy was on the team with Luka and Kyrie. He's now in Charlotte. Oof.
He cannot be happy today. He's not happy at all.
I mean, listen, and and Grant, some people around the league might be like comeuppance because he's a little bit of a people feel a certain kind of way about him. So there's that. I thought the Sixers trading Patrick Beverley for Cameron Payne was interesting, and only because Sixers is Daryl trying to sell the fans on, well, Joel's getting reevaluated in 4 weeks, so we'll see. It's like, guys, come on, you know it's a wrap, right? Even if he gets reevaluated in 4 weeks, he's not going to play in 4 weeks. He's going to need another month at a minimum to ramp up. That puts us at the end of the regular season, April. Where are they going to be record-wise at the end of the regular season?
Well, Gerard, I was also talking to JD from Knicks Fan TV about that. We mentioned that move with Milwaukee getting Patrick Beverley. Is that a little bit of Milwaukee telling on themselves there and getting Patrick Beverley? Because we know how bad that perimeter defense is. And now you're out here relying on Patrick Beverley. No shade to Patrick Beverley, who we know was a Brian Fonseca all-star.
All shade to Malik Beasley, though. All shade to Malik Beasley.
Well, shade to Beasley, shade to Dame. Right. Also, the dirty secret is Dame's not been that great this season. Like, he's been fine. Right. But last season, you could have made the argument. I wouldn't have, but statistically, you could have made the argument that Dame was the best offensive player in the league last year. You could have easily made that argument last year. He's still elite, but he ain't that. And so if he's not the best player in the league and he's still as poor as he's on defense, what's up, Milwaukee? What y'all doing? What's good?
Yeah. It's interesting. They go get Patrick Beverley, which shows you just, to me, it's desperation a little bit about how much they need to shore up that perimeter defense. Let's go back to the Knicks because Brian mentioned that here. I mean, we've been talking about a lot in the show. We got a lot of Knicks fans there in the chat. Appreciate you guys watching and supporting. Like on the YouTube channel if you can. We appreciate that at New York Post Sports. Guys, this deal, it seems to be universally deals, I say, but it's really part of one big deal. It seems to be universally loved by Knicks Nation. Knicks fans are feeling this. They're talking about competency around the Knicks. We've been covering a lot of things in sports media for a while here in New York. Knicks haven't always been equated with competency. You know, Brian, you're a little younger than myself and Gerard. You haven't seen much competency with the Knicks. Do you like what Leon Rose is doing here? He's acquired OG Anunoby, Alec Burks, Precious Achiuwa, and Bojan Bogdanovic without giving up a first-round pick.
This is the most competent front office that they've had since the 90s, probably, because I didn't grow up with this. Part of the reason I'm not a Knicks fan is because growing up, Jerome James was a big signing. You know what I mean? Like
rough times, man. Rough times.
Damn, like shots fired.
The 2000s were what they were. You know, they've come a long way from Travis Knight and Othello Harrington and LeVar Postel, and you have now OG Anunoby, who can guard most of the guys that you're going to see in the playoffs, you would think. And, you know, the offense should be there for the most part, at least from a spacing standpoint. We'll see how much he actually impacts them, like in the playoffs when he's in that atmosphere. But he does have a ring to his credit. I don't remember if he did much in that run, but, you know, he has a ring to his credit. Bojan Bogdanovic, I think, was a smart acquisition for mainly financial reasons. The reason why I like the Bojan Bogdanovic acquisition is because he's making it around 19 million or so next year. Only 2 million is guaranteed. You can get out of that before. I don't know why Restream does this with the balloons, but it's so stupid. But
it's okay. It's okay. You're so excited about the trade. You want to have a party. You had the balloons pop up. I see what's going on there, Brian. I see it.
So Bojan Bogdanovic is a Knick, and basically what this tells me is, again, eyeballs to the summer. 19 million on the books next year. They could get out of it by, I believe the date is June 29th, because 2 million is guaranteed, and you could just let go of that contract. I think you actually want to have that beyond that date, because in executing a trade, you need him to occupy that salary slot. And if you're going to go for a star, that expiring contract of Bojan Bogdanovic is going to be useful. From a basketball standpoint, before that, he's going to help in the immediate future because Julius Randle is obviously injured right now. OG Anunoby, we'll see. There was not an encouraging report about him earlier this week about, you know, what's going on there, from, you know, how much time he's going to miss. But Bojan Bogdanovic is nothing, if nothing else, could shoot. He's one of the worst probably defenders at the forward position in the NBA. I think Gerard said in the text 4th percentile. I think he has the worst defensive box plus minus with the Pistons. And also hilariously
saying a lot coming from that team.
Yeah, hilariously woeful rebounder also for his position, but he can shoot the hell out of the ball. That's one thing we know he can do. And Alec Burks is obviously going to add some depth in the backcourt, rather, that, you know, the team has been missing, honestly, since Emmanuel quickly has gotten out. And I think Alec Burks is steady. He's a vet. He's a guy, like, he can actually pick up some of the pieces that other guys are going to leave off the floor in spots. So I think that was a smart acquisition, even though he's an expiring contract. But the Knicks sort of build themselves out more to, I think they could compete with anybody in the East. I think they would be favorites against most teams in the East in the series. They wouldn't be favored against the Celtics or the Bucks or Philly if Joel Embiid is actually back healthy. I think they'd be favored against everybody else, and that's saying something, because that wasn't the case last year. And I think they could compete with anybody. I still think they may get to the conference finals at best, but that you'll take that. That's something, and they're clearly ascending because, again, I will remind you, Dex, because I make this point about the Knicks all the time. They do not have a max contract on their books at all. They still have financial flexibility. They can make trades this summer. So I think it's very smart for them to sort of get better now, and then later on they could sort of make the splash. But they're being more patient with it than I'm familiar with, to the point that it's shocking. It's like, this is not the Knicks that I'm used to from a front office standpoint. I think they're doing a really smart job of building out a basketball team who is competitive.
Competency is nice. It's nice to see it. I think a lot of fans in the chat have appreciated that. The competency. See, Brian Fonseca of the Action Network and New York Post with me. Also, Gerard Hector of True Hoop. Gerard, how do you grade this deal for the Knicks? And are you impressed? Because it's funny, you were in studio with me on this show on New York Got Game. You might have made Knicks fans a little bit upset. You weren't as optimistic a couple months ago. I want to be clear for Gerard. This was pre-OG Anunoby.
Correct.
Pre-OG Anunoby. Gerard, you've also told me lately, I've been liking the vibes. You told me this as Sunday before the deadline.
Yeah, go ahead.
You like this deal?
I do. And I want to kind of echo with some of what Brian's saying. Like, go back to what I originally said about any of these deals. Nothing to me moves the needle. This doesn't make me think that the Knicks are going to do anything more than what I already thought they were going to do in the postseason.
Right.
Mind you, I need to make sure Julius Randle's actually healthy, right? And those things that actually matters, which separated shoulder, we got some kinks to work out. OG, if he's not healthy, that's going to be problematic for them. All that being said, Brian talked about the competence. The competence is so huge, guys. Look, this is a team that in the last 5 years has made the playoffs twice, but we are trending up, Dex, and that's what I think I mentioned. And you were like, how about twice in the last 4 years? Make the Knicks fans a little happier when I was on the show with you.
I did say that.
But they're, again, as Brian mentioned, no bad deals, no max deals. So they have all the flexibility, all their draft capital as well. So it means that when it is time for them to potentially acquire someone, right, to pair with Jalen Brunson and OG Anunoby, they can do it. Now, what I love is they're not out here just saying, all right, let me go out and get Karl Anthony Towns, or let me, right? They want a specific kind of player. And to Tibbs, Leon Rose, and William Wesley's credit, this team has an identity and you know who they are. And it is very important when if you have a vision to be something as an organization, you want to go somewhere, you have to have the vision has to start at the top. Now, I don't know what James Dolan's thinking about all this. So I'm going to put him to the side for a minute, but I do know Leon Rose, Wes, and Tibbs, and everyone down has the same vision and direction for this team. We're going to be hard-nosed, play good defense, right? Get good to great shots on offense, share the ball, right? That's their identity. And it's melded. Look, Knicks fans love to valorize the Carmelo Anthony era where you won one playoff series. Like, yo, this team is so much better than that team. Like, so much better. Yes, there is no one on this team as good as Carmelo, but that doesn't matter because everything else is so much better. The team is so much better. And so I love where they are from a team standpoint. And when they go to acquire whomever that star is going to be, and Knicks fans, don't worry about who it is. It may be next summer, who cares? They're going to find the person that fits what it is they do. Not just, oh, Cat's available, let's get him. Or, oh, LeBron's available. No. Whoever fits their mold that they identify, that's who they're going to get, like they did with Brunson. So I'm loving what they're doing.
All right, loving what the Knicks are doing. We just had another trade come in, and this is kind of correlated to a trade earlier. The Pacers are acquiring Doug McDermott. He is being traded from the Spurs. So the Pacers replacing some shooting they lost in trading Buddy Hield. Buddy Hield traded earlier to the Sixers. Want to ask you guys about that one.
And jokes tell themselves. The jokes tell themselves. Here.
You said the jokes on themselves?
No, they tell themselves.
Oh, they tell themselves.
I think Doug McDermott was in Hoosiers.
Oh, okay. Yeah. He's let's just say he fits in. He fits in with
It's going to be a fan favorite. If
he's a fan favorite. Yes, we can say that. He's a fan favorite. Do you like this move for the Pacers to add some shooting back to their team after they traded away Buddy Hield?
I mean, it's fine for me. Look, the bottom line is the Pacers are going to be operating from the standpoint of we're going for a top 6 seed. Actually, look, the Pacers can actually even go for a top 4, top 5 seed. They get Halliburton back and right, and he's not quite right yet, right? Coming back from that hamstring. He and Siakam are a devastating 1-2 punch with Turner and everything. I mean, that's, by the way, Siakam's the trade, best on-off numbers in the league. Like, and it's not close. So, like, you get Halliburton right again, you get that defensive play around him, and I love what they can do. And this is a team, they're young. They want playoff experience, right? Get in there. Who gives a shit if you get, oops, I cursed. Who cares if you get beat in round 1? So what? You've never been to the playoffs in like a million years. Go get some experience, get your lumps, get better. Sorry about that, Ryan. My bad. Just got you hot.
No, you're good. You're good, man. You're good. So, things happen sometimes. It's all. I'm surprised it came from you and not from Brian.
I know. I'm messing up the whole thing.
That was expected from Brian.
That was a plus 400 upset right now.
Easy. Plus 4,000.
Plus 4,000.
Yeah, just real quick on.
Go ahead, B.
Like he's fine. We can move on.
No, it's okay. You can do that. I want to ask you guys about some other trades that went down, maybe that we saw earlier. You know, we saw the Celtics yesterday before the deadline. We saw them go and get Xavier Tillman. I thought that was a pretty solid move. One of the things when you looked at the Celtics as being one of the favorites to win the NBA title, a lot of people said, well, they need another big man. We see some of the age catching up to Horford. Did you like the move for the Celtics to go get Xavier Tillman? What do you think about that, Brian?
Yeah, Nemias Queta whatever his name is, who I did gamble on once.
Actually, you know what? I'm sorry, I got to hold you for a second. We have news coming in. According to Adrian Wojnarowski, DeJounte Murray is not being traded. Just want to put that. DeJounte Murray not being traded. He's going to stay put. I know a lot of Knicks fans and Nets fans had interest in there. We saw earlier, I believe it was Chris Haynes, who reported that talks between Atlanta and New Orleans had stalled. So that didn't happen. This takes the Lakers out of it. I saw somebody had just asked in the comments. I think it was Jeff Rapp. I see you there. You said, what are the Lakers doing today?
Nothing.
The answer appears with about 10 minutes to go in the deadline, nothing.
I think Chris Haynes reported that too. I think he's or Rose, one of them, said like the Lakers are mostly going to stand pat.
Right. What's more shocking here? The Lakers standing pat? DeJounte Murray not being traded? What's shocking?
Well, the Hawks aren't financially incentivized to trade DeJounte Murray yet because he's not an expiring contract, right? The shocking one to me is DeMar DeRozan, who apparently is going to just remain with the Chicago Bulls. But that's because, I don't know, teams think that they saw what the Heat did last year, which is improbable, and I don't know if that's going to ever happen again, and think that they could replicate the same thing. And I don't think Nikola Vucevic and Kobe White and DeMar DeRozan are going to be doing that. You know, as much as I like the emergence of Ayo Dosunmu and Kobe White, I don't think that's going to happen. So I think with DeJounte Murray, okay, the Atlanta Hawks still think more of themselves than we do, and they're going to be wrong. And at some point, they'll pick, who to cling themselves to, whether it's going to be Quinn Snyder or Trae Young or DeJounte Murray. And until they figure it out, we could leave them alone because they'll be like this middling 500-ish team in the East who won't seriously contend for a championship.
You are a big fan of the Atlanta Hawks front office.
I mean,
fine. Like they're fine. You know what I mean? Like I feel
scathing. What I will say, Dexter, is before I get back into the Murray and all that other stuff, it shows you how quick the fortunes of an NBA team changes, right? And how you can get fooled into thinking something a little bit too quickly or too soon before it actually is relevant and matters, right? The Hawks were in the conference finals. What was it? 3 seasons ago or 2 seasons ago?
That was 3 seasons ago.
Right. And it was like
year after the bubble. Yeah.
And the young talent was ascending. We're like DeAndre Hunter. Oh my God. A Kongwu. If they figure this out, they can be really, and that remains true. However, for whatever reason, you can blame Trae Young, you can blame front office, whatever. The development did not happen with the guys, including Trae. Trae's an excellent offensive player, but among the worst defensive players in the league. Although this year's playing much better defense this year. He's at least trying on that end of the floor. But that totally wrecked them. And that idea that Brian mentioned, going back to the Bulls, I'm surprised that they haven't made any moves because you're not going to pull the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat have a different kind of way about them in that come the playoff time, Jimmy Butler turns into a top 5 NBA player. There's nobody on the Bulls roster who's going to all of a sudden become a top 5 NBA player when the calendar turns to April. Sorry, it ain't DeMar DeRozan. It ain't Pat Williams, right? Ayo's great. He's young. I love Alex Caruso. It's not him. Not going to be Vooch. Who is it? And they could have gotten so much back for Caruso and DeRozan and really accelerated this rebuild.
Well, this is yet another deadline where we see the Chicago Bulls not doing anything, and you wonder about them and where they are, if they're stuck in NBA purgatory, right there in the middle, sort of like the Hawks that Brian mentioned there. So I find that very interesting. We have another deal, not a major one. Robin Lopez being traded from Milwaukee to the Kings, according to ESPN. Lopez expected to be waived and become a free agent, so he's no longer on the same roster.
The Bucks aren't a family organization. Trading Brook Lopez's brother to the Kings.
Thanasis Antetokounmpo would beg to differ.
He would beg to differ. He's still got a job. I'm just saying, he's still got a job there.
The fact that man has a roster spot is just the most ridiculous, absurd thing ever.
Once a Knicks draft pick, by the way, Thanasis
Antetokounmpo. That is correct.
That dude is not even an NBA player. Can we all agree upon that? He is not an NBA player.
No, not. Should we be? I think some fans coming into this, and I talked to Michael Scotto about this on Sunday. Hey, is this going to be a busy trade deadline? Now, there's been activity. There's no doubt about that today. There's been plenty of activity, but there hasn't been a lot of big names moved. I'm not necessarily shocked about that. Did anybody shift the margins really today?
Nobody.
Or are we kind of still in the same space with the Celtics and the Nuggets, or you're still looking at them as the favorites to win the title?
Guys, in the history of the NBA, when has a trade deadline move happened with a big name that has turned someone into a title contender and they won it?
I don't think. Was Rasheed Wallace that same season. So that's probably the only one.
That's the closest one. And I mean, I would consider Rasheed like elite, but most people only know about scoring points, so they don't think Rasheed's any good. But yes, that's the best one.
I had to go back 20 years ago to your point.
20 years ago.
So no, everyone who's where they are, I feel the same about them today as I did yesterday. Same.
The teams that I probably feel better about, even if it's better, it's slightly, are the teams that made moves prior. So the activity we got with like the best players from the deadline all happened already. With Siakam was moved earlier. Yes,
that was a great move.
OG Anunoby was moved earlier. James Harden early this year. Terry Rozier earlier this year. Like those guys are probably better than everyone who was moved today.
Oh, by far.
You know what I mean? So, and I feel like I'm missing somebody else, but those are the guys that were moved already.
James Harden at the time.
I mentioned him. That was early on this year. So that's probably it, right? Yeah. And I think those guys probably changed stuff for their teams,
no doubt,
a little bit more. But I also don't think it tilts the power balance like that much. James Harden might, depending on what happens with the Clippers. I'm still highly skeptical of them for reasons. But
I mean, if the Clippers are healthy.
That's the caveat.
And of course, that's caveat. And that's caveat with so many older teams. But I mean, that top 5, good luck. Like they are a nightmare. Yeah. Same with Boston.
Was Pau Gasol that same year? Someone comments Pau Gasol in terms of trade deadline acquisitions.
Yes, Pau.
They lost the finals though.
Correct. They lost the finals that year, and
got there though.
Pau was Pau. Did Pau make All NBA by then yet, or did he not make it till he turned into a Laker? I don't remember if he's All NBA.
I don't remember for sure. Just
an
another note that'll be interesting to our local viewers here. Spencer Dinwiddie is being waived by the Raptors, so he will become a free agent. So
Marcus Morris also apparently I saw that he might get bought out as well.
Right. So that's an interesting move, and that Dinwiddie got moved from the Nets to the Raptors. Now will be waived, will be a free agent. Could be an interesting pickup for teams looking for another ball handler. That could be very interesting.
On the buyout market.
It's a buyout market.
Do you consider him a connector, Brian? Do you consider Dinwiddie a connector type of player, or is he still like hunt his shot too much?
I mean, I the way he's played basketball the last couple of months would make me either. I don't know. Like, I feel like the guy we saw in Dallas should be who he is. He hasn't been that this year.
Yeah.
With the Nets previously, right? Like, that's when he was at his sort of apex. I don't know what's going on, but obviously at his best, he's somebody who, one, gets downhill, like very, very effectively, can get to the line, can hit his free throws, can create for others in that way. Obviously, I think highly of him as a passer when he, feels like playing. And, we'll see what happens with the shooting. That can come and go a little bit. It was very good in Dallas when they had what was going on there with Jalen Brunson, Luka Doncic and such. But I think he'll be valuable on the buyout market for somebody. Buyout market candidates often are overrated occasionally, but like we did see Kevin Love was a buyout candidate last year that did work for Miami, for example. And there aren't like a ton of like other buyout candidates I'm trying to think of. I know the Celtics had one in their 07-08 run. I'm trying to remember who it was, but that helped them. It doesn't happen often, but I think we'll see some interesting names this year for sure.
Yeah, there'll be some interesting names. You got Kyle Lowry there as well. That will be interesting. 2 minutes to go, under 2 minutes ago to the deadline. Excuse me, 3 minutes ago to the deadline. We have Stefan Bondy, New York Post Knicks beat writer, will be joining us at 3:00. We'll talk more about what the Knicks did today. I guess the last couple of things for me, guys, I want to go back to the Nets because we talked a little about what you guys thought about the Knicks trade, just to bring it back locally. With the Nets, do you like what their direction appears to be? We talked to Brian Lewis about this, and it seems like they are trying to look towards 2025 as sort of reshaping or rebuilding their team towards that. Do you like the direction in what it seems like the Nets are going, where they're trying to acquire as many assets as they can while building around or with Mikal Bridges, however you want to call it?
It works if they get the star player that they want, right? Mikal Bridges is a very good player. Cam Johnson, all these guys are great players, but they are magnified when they are next to a superstar. That's when your true value, and you're like, oh, we can go to the title now with that guy, and these is our compliments. Who that person is, just like with the Knicks, I have no idea. The Nets feel probably a certain kind of way about star players right now. I've been having to get burned pretty bad, mainly by Kyrie, but that entire trio, that's why they want Bridges so much, because Bridges is such a model citizen and such a good dude and gives them no headaches. So that's why they want to keep him, which I get. And I'm all for that. Who's the star player? With any star player, you got to deal with a little bit of ego and a little bit of management. And the Nets got to do a better job of managing those type of personalities.
Yeah. Brian, your thoughts?
I mean, they got Dennis Schroeder for next year, $13 million on the books. That's somebody you can reroute or even keep around. I like Dennis Schroeder, not just because he was the World Cup MVP, but I think he's a good basketball player. Otherwise, you still have Ben Simmons on the books for $40 million next year.
Yep, that's the one.
That's a whole other thing. You have Cam Johnson, who's going to be 23, 21, 23, so it's kind of up and down contractually for the remainder of the deal. Mikal Bridges, we established, is going to be there for a couple more years, at least financially. Dorian Finney-Smith, who they did not move off of, they're not financially incentive to do so yet. Like, they don't really have that because he's going to be under contract next year, has an option for the year after. And the big question is really Nick Claxton. What happens there? Brian Lewis was just talking about it, like the challenges of re-signing him because of what he's going to want. And I feel like Dex and Gerard, you would agree. I think he's going to look at maybe a Mitchell Robinson type of contract and be like, hey, I should probably get something in that neighborhood.
What did Mitch get signed for?
Mitchell was it 13 per that he had, or
it was a little more than that?
A little more than that. I can't remember. $15 million
range or whatever.
I think Clax is going to want 20 per. I really do.
Jared Allen got 5 for $100 a couple years ago when he signed that extension.
He might want something in that neighborhood. 4 for 85 for something like that. 20 to 24 million
that's going to factor huge into their decision, as you
said. What I think it's going to be is it's probably going to land ultimately in between there, and it's like, could the Nets functionally have Simmons, Cameron Johnson, Mikal Bridges, Nick Claxton on those heavy salaries, Dennis Schroeder at $13 million, like all that on your books next year? It's not leaving you a lot of wiggle room to really build out a roster. Thank you, Joseph, for the comment. 4 years, $60 million for Mitch. So 15 on the dot. I think it's going to be between 15 and 20 is what he looks for. And it's very difficult to pay that much to a center who's not really elite. So
yeah, no, it is. It's going to be interesting to see what the Nets do. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Joe Masali, my director at SNY. See you there. Appreciate you, man. Gerard, Brian, appreciate you coming on with me. We are at the trade deadline. It's over. There's just a couple of small moves. I just seen this. Bruce Brown will be staying with the Raptors. They are not moving him. The 76ers and Celtics made a deal. Jaden Springer to the Celtics, going from Philly for a second-round pick. So some deals still coming in at deadline. Guys, thanks for joining me. Appreciate you. We will talk more NBA hoops soon. As I said, at the deadline, it is 3 o'clock. Now we're going to bring in good friend, Knicks beat writer for the New York Post, my guy Stefan Bondy, who undoubtedly has had himself quite a busy day with everything going on around the New York Knicks. Steph, what's up, man?
What's going on, man? How you been?
I'm good, man. Been busy just trying to follow the news like you, but I'm not as busy as you because you were trying to stay on top of it. I'll ask you all this because you were watching this too as the news came down. When you first saw that it was Quentin Grimes going to Detroit for Alec Burks with a couple second-round picks, and that was just the information we had. What did you make of that? And then when you saw the larger deal, how do you think that take the context of the Knicks getting Bojan Bogdanovic along with Alec Burks coming back here to New York? What did you think about that deal?
Well, there was a lot going on at that time. The Philadelphia, as I reported in today's paper, so last night on the web, the Philadelphia Sixers were in on Alec Burks, and they were talking to the Pistons about him. And I think at some point this morning or at some point early today, talks intensified on Bojan between the Knicks and the Detroit Pistons. And I didn't know how it would look, how it would get done. I did know this, that Evan Fournier and Quentin Grimes were being dangled for weeks as the trade chips the Knicks were going to use. And it made sense. Listen, Evan Fournier has his expiring contract. They were looking to move off that. Quentin Grimes has been frustrated and not playing up to his potential here. And the Knicks got two players who are going to contribute greatly to what they're going to be doing. And I think it was a really good move for them. With that being said, we have to wait for two important things to happen here. One, OG Anunoby, what is going on with his elbow? They're saying now it's bone spurs. So that I think my read on it for right now is they're trying to rest him until he's fully healed. That surgery is not something that they're talking about. Maybe we'll get more clarity on that later on today before the Mavericks game. And the other thing is Julius Randle. He's an all-star and he is dealing right now with a dislocated shoulder. So how will he come back? Will he come back the same player that he was before the injury? Will he come back at all? How's the rehab going to go? All those are big questions looming over the Knicks. But if you look at them after this trade deadline, you say that is probably the third best team in the Eastern Conference. And given how messy the Milwaukee Bucks are right now, I mean, you just don't change coaches in the middle of the season without being messy.
Right.
Given how messy they are, they can push for a conference finals. Once you get there, you never know what happens. You play the Celtics, you never know what happens. So I think that's how Knicks fans should kind of consume today because they look good right now.
Yeah, the what I've seen thus far, just people commenting here in the chat on Twitter, people have been very, very happy about this trade. I've rarely seen any Knicks fans that haven't liked this move that they've made. There's some portion of the fan base, I'm sure you've seen this too, Steph, where they're saying, oh, well, I don't like that we gave up, got rid of all our first round picks, our young players. What do you say to that? To people that might question that the Knicks, their homegrown talent, shall you say, is really gone here, outside of maybe Mitchell Robinson. What do you say to that? Is it about looking at what they've actually turned those players into? Because that's the way I look at it. I think you got to look at what they were able to flip these players into.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say to that. Jalen Brunson has elevated himself to a superstar status. So, are you just gonna say, yeah, we got these homegrown players? Let's keep trying to hope they improve and get better and look better around him, or are we gonna find pieces that are a better fit around him? I think it's a no-brainer. I mean, Jalen Brunson is more important to this team than Quentin Grimes and Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett, and you have a winning player on your roster. You have a player doing what he's doing, and you try to build a team around that. And I think that's what they've been doing. OG Anunoby is a better fit with Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle than RJ Barrett was. So to me, it's about winning. It's not about like, hey, maybe 3 years down the road we'll be better, but maybe not. But you know what I mean? It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, it seems to me like these moves were no-brainers. You mentioned the injuries before, Steph, and you were talking about Julius Randle and OG Anunoby. I don't know what you've heard from the organization, but do you feel as though those injuries, along with, I know Jalen Brunson just tweaked his ankle the other night, did that impact the moves they made today in saying, hey, we got to go out and shore up our depth? Did those injuries impact the moves that we saw the Knicks make today?
Yeah, I mean, maybe in totality, all the injuries together made them come to the realization that we can't sustain what we're doing because they were really shorthanded. I mean, I love Josh Hart. You're not going to play him 45 minutes and sustain that throughout the season. You're not going to play Precious Achiuwa 45 minutes and sustain that throughout the season. You want to take some burden off of Jalen Brunson because right now he's holding a lot, and you can talk about his minutes and there are different points of view and saying, well, he's not playing that many minutes. If you look at stars around the league, he's about average, but you want to take the load off him because he is making, when you watch him play, I mean, the guy is making cuts and doing things that the body is obviously going to wear on the body if you play that many minutes. So I think taking in totality, all the injuries put together made them understand we need to do something there. Now they might have done it anyway, because when you give up Emmanuel Quickley and you give up RJ Barrett in the Anunoby trade, you gave up a lot of points. And we knew the Knicks were going to need offense. We knew that they would probably address that at the trade deadline, and they did. So I don't know how much the injuries played a factor in it, because maybe they were going to do this anyway. Maybe they wouldn't have added Bogdanovic or just got one of the two if the injuries weren't a factor. But we knew that they needed offense, and they addressed that at the trade deadline.
Yeah, they did definitely do that. Now they have 2 open roster spots here, Steph. Do you think the Knicks will be aggressive in the buyout market? And if so, who could they possibly target?
In the buyout market? Well, I haven't really checked on that yet. I mean, did Kyle Lowry get
Still
waived?
not bought out, but that's a rumor out there, as you know, that Kyle Lowry there. Spencer Dinwiddie now bought out. If they wanted another ball handler, I don't know if that's something they would look for. Could it be a big filling those roster spots? I mean, would you sign Taj Gibson for the rest of the year? There's some options they have there.
Yeah. I mean,
Robin
there's
Lopez.
I mean, there's a lot of options. The problem with a guy like, let's say Kyle Lowry joins the market. The problem with a guy like Kyle Lowry, I think he'd be great. I think he would fit to be perfect acquisition. Problem is, does Kyle Lowry want to come to this team understanding that he's not going to get very many minutes, that it's going to be like a spot situation? Because if you back up Jalen Brunson, you're not going to get a lot of time. Or would he rather go to Philly? That's his hometown. So I don't know. I don't know who's out there yet. I got to check on all that stuff. But They cannot re-sign Ryan Arcidiacono though. That's not
Right.
allowed.
He cannot come back. So part
And
of
he's not gonna get his point. He's not gonna get his 1 point of the season with the Knicks.
He's not. He is not. Unfortunately, he's not. What do you think about, because there's a lot of talk about, and I saw this, let Leon Rose cook. Leon Rose is cooking. He's done a masterful job. He got all these players that we've seen the Knicks acquire this year, OG Anunoby, Precious Achiuwa, the 2 players today, without giving up a first-round pick. How much credit do you give Leon Rose for where the Knicks are right now and the possibility of what they can do in the future?
Yeah, he's put them in a tremendous position. And I think a lot of people, not just me, but myself included, had some doubts when you put in an agent in charge who has no experience putting a team together, no experience in that executive role. And he's obviously done a really good job making the team competitive now, but also flexible for the future. And I think that was an important part of what they did at the trade deadline, because as I reported yesterday, they were pretty steadfast of not giving up first round picks. That they were very reluctant to do that. And that's, they held true to that. Bruce Brown would have cost them a first round pick. And he was never traded, right?
No, he was not traded.
Yes, he wasn't.
Woj just said he would stay put, not traded.
Yeah. So that was part of the deal. And now they go into the summer with all their first round picks. They can have as many as 4. They're not going to have 4 in 2024. They'll probably have 2.
Right.
But they'll have 11. I think it's something like 11 in the next 7 years. And so, they're set up for that if and when that superstar player ever becomes available. And we've been talking about this since they took, since 2020. So it's 4 years now. But eventually it'll happen. Eventually that superstar player will become available. What's Cleveland going to do in the playoffs? Will Donovan Mitchell become available? Do the Knicks think that Donovan Mitchell is a good fit at this point? Those are questions that we can now ask in the summer, because the Knicks are in a position to make a move like that.
Yeah, and the Knicks have done a really good job. You mentioned that you think they can get to an Eastern Conference Finals, but then people are going to throw around Steph the C word here. Are they a contender? With the way the Eastern Conference looks, right? Boston is still one of the title favorites. Milwaukee, what was the word you used? I believe you said messy. I believe you said things were messy in Milwaukee,
yes.
And I think that would be accurate. Do you think the Knicks are in contender status? Because you said anything. You made a great point. Anything can happen if you get to Eastern Conference Finals. Would you use the word contender when it comes to talking about the Knicks?
Are we talking about like, okay, they might like what if you're using the word contender, what's the percentage that they could win a title? You're gonna have to define contender for me.
To me, I'll say this, right? Like, to me, contender is, I think, can you get to a conference finals? Can you be one of the last 4 teams left standing in the NBA with, to your point, a chance of anything happening, no matter how that breaks, to get to the NBA finals? Can you put yourself in that position?
Yes, they can. And if they get healthy, if OG Anunoby's elbow doesn't need surgery, or it'll be fine if he just rested, and he'll be ready for the home stretch of the second half of the season, and Julius Randle comes back and he doesn't re-aggravated that dislocated shoulder. Yes, they are a team that could definitely make the Eastern Conference Finals.
All right, there you go. That is New York Post Knicks beat writer Stefan Bondy giving Knicks fans hope. Like the trade, it was a good one. I know it was a busy day for you, Steph. Appreciate you taking some time with us. I'm sure we'll be talking a lot over the next couple of days, and we'll see what kind of roster the Knicks put out tonight, because they're going to be very shorthanded. At the Garden against the Mavericks.
I love when the Mavericks come to town, man. Because now Kyrie Irving's on there. He's fun as heck to watch, and Luka Doncic always seems like he's on a mission. So even after all this, it's going to be a fun game tonight.
It's going to be fun. Well, you get ready. You go enjoy that game. We'll talk soon, brother. Appreciate you.
All right, man. Good to talk.
All right. That is Stefan Bondy, Knicks beat writer, joining us with some great insight following this busy day for the New York Knicks, in which they acquire Alec Burks and they acquire Bojan Bogdanovic, 2 really major trades there. We are going to bring in one of my favorite Knicks content creators. And what's dope right now? She has joined the New York Post sports team as an intern, but she does such a good job with Let's Talk Knicks. It is Charlotte Steinberg. Charlotte, what is going on? How you doing?
How you doing, Dexter? Thank you so much for having me on.
No problem.
Really appreciate it. Busy day for the Knicks. I know we've been talking about it all day, but still think that there could be moves on the buyout market, which are very interesting.
Well, let me start there with you, Charlotte, because there's been, I know fans like to think about this now. As soon as the deadline is over, we're past 3:00, right? If the Knicks could make a move on the buyout market, they've added a ball handler off the bench now with Alec Burks. They've addressed that need, got some more shooting with Bojan Bogdanovic. What would you like to see them do in the buyout market? Is there a player you're thinking about or targeting? What would you like to see them do?
Yeah. I really want Marcus Morris.
Who just got bought out. Good one there.
Who just got bought out.
Yep.
I really want him. I think he'd be a great fit for the bench. He's been in New York before. He knows what he's getting himself into. I'm not against bringing Daniel House back to the Knicks. I think that could be interesting. And then also another former Knick. The former Knicks might be coming back. It's like we're having a reunion here, but maybe Robin Lopez, because I'm not sure, we got that update on Mitchell Robinson that he's starting work after the All-Star break, but at the same time, I'm not sure if he's not fully healthy, why not get some insurance there again? Obviously, as Stefan said before, that they can't sign Ryan Archiniak, and I bet they would try to sign Ryan back because they have 2 open roster spots. But I think that right now, I'm looking at Marcus Morris, I'm looking at Daniel House, and I'm also looking at Robin Lopez.
All right, good ones. All of those was a couple expected, and Robin Lopez just got traded, expected to be bought out. So that'll be interesting there to see who the Knicks can sign to fill up those roster spots before the end of the season. They're $2.5 million below the luxury tax right now as we speak. Charlotte, very busy day. I know you're following. You're always plugged into the Knicks news. As you saw the trade information coming down, what was your emotions? Because I said this before at the top of the show. I was talking with my producer, Ryan Sampson, who's doing a great job here today. We were talking at first, and when it was just Grimes for Burks and a couple second-round picks, we felt like the Knicks gave up too much. But then as more information came out, we didn't feel that way. How did you feel about everything just in totality of what the Knicks gave up and what they got back in Alec Burks and Bojan Bogdanovic?
Yeah, so I was actually in class. I'm a full-time student right now at Syracuse University. But I was actually in my sports social media class, and I told my professor, shout out Professor Klingerman, if a Knicks trade goes down, someone has to tell me. So I was asking him a question about something we were working on, and basically someone was like, oh, Charlotte, you're right. It's Alec Burks. He's coming to the Knicks. And I was like, for what? And they're like, Quentin Grimes. I was like, we gave up Quentin Grimes for just Alec Burks. Where is Bogdanovic? You can't give up Quentin Grimes for just Alec Burks. That doesn't make a lot of sense, but I was very happy. Obviously Quentin Grimes was reported multiple times that he was disgruntled. He wanted out. So again, this makes sense. Another situation that the Knicks have sent one of their young players to a good situation where he can get minutes and he can succeed. Sad to see Ryan Arcidiacono go, just because, he does call out those defensive 3 seconds on the bench.
Very valuable with that.
Evan's contract is super valuable. I know a lot of fans were calling for him to be traded. And, Malachi Flynn, who just came here through that Toronto trade with OG, he showed something while here. I'm not shocked he got traded, but to say at first when it broke, when saying Alec Burks, I was like, okay, let's see what we gave up. Maybe some second rounders, right? Then it comes out and we're talking about Quentin Grimes, and I'm, what? You can't give up a first round. Quentin Grimes is apologies to Alec Burks. I think he's going to be a great player. Thibodeau loves him. But I was just shocked. I didn't even get to see the trade. I was literally asking a question to my professor, and I was like, Steven, are you kidding me? Are you really? We got Alec Burks for Quentin Grimes?
So when you found out the entire details of the trade, I assume that changed your vibe or feelings that you had about it.
Yes, I was so happy because Bogdanovic and Alec Burks both shoot over 40% from downtown, right? You never can have too many 3-point shooters, especially with, bringing in OG with that injury. We don't really know where he is at right now, but you need wings. When it comes to the playoffs, you need wings that can shoot threes and be successful from downtown. I love it because you're bringing in vets. Yes, you gave up one kid, but you're bringing in vets with experience. And I think that's really important in what Thibodeau values in his system. And I think when you come playoff time and you're facing a Celtics team or a Bucks team or a Cavaliers team, you need shooting.
Yeah, you're definitely gonna need that. I think this was a solid move for the Knicks. I think it's good. Most of the fan base, and I've been saying this just from looking at people in the chat, and thank you everybody for still rocking with us and watching this first ever New York Post, New York Got Game live NBA trade deadline show. Everybody's been pretty optimistic about this and feel like these moves have been good. And you probably heard me talking to Steph about this too, Charlotte. Leon Rose. is he executive of the year right now? He got OG Anunoby. He got Precious Achiuwa here. He's got Alec Burks and Bojan Bogdanovic. And the man did not even give up a first-round pick. This is pretty impressive, I think, in terms of what the Knicks have done and allowing themselves to have flexibility for the future. What do you think about the job Leon Rose has done? Is he executive of the year right now in the NBA?
I think he's done one of the best jobs in the NBA. I know on NBA Today, Kendrick Perkins, Zach Lowe were saying that the Knicks are operating like one of the most confident and smartest team in the league. They know what they're doing. They're not even giving up first-round picks. To say that you got OG Anunoby, which is probably one of the best, if not the best, defensive wing in the NBA, and you did not have to give up a first-round pick. Obviously, you had to throw in Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett. But
Right.
picks, they still have 2 picks in this year's upcoming draft. Do I think they're going to draft both? Probably not. But they're going to probably move those for the quote-unquote star trade that we've been waiting for years, what seems like. Maybe this year is different. Maybe this summer is different. But I think when you look at the trades that the Leon Rose and the rest of the office, Gerson Rose does, William Wesley, what they have done is unbelievable. They have completely turned around this franchise. And I think if he is not executive of the year, it's highway robbery. In my opinion, you can't do a better job than he's doing right now. I don't see someone around the league that's improving their team without giving up. Look, the Celtics have been making some trades. They just got Jaden Springer, and the Bucks just got Patrick Beverly.
Yep.
The Cavs haven't made any moves, at least for today. So I'm watching around that East just to see who the Knicks could be playing. But who has done, my question to all the reporters, players, anything, the NBA even, who votes on these, who is doing a better job than the Knicks right now in trying to improve their team before the playoffs?
The Knicks, I mean, well, if you said, that's a great question, because the Knicks have absolutely been aggressive. If you talk about from the end of last year, top of this year, going and getting Anunoby. And I think what you're seeing the Knicks do, especially in the conference, is they've got, to your point, they went and got players that fit, right? That fit their system, that fit what they want to do. And I think that's what has the fan base excited, while, as I mentioned, also keeping the flexibility. I think that's the key thing too. The Knicks have not lost any of flexibility. You talked about the 2 first-round picks they have coming up in this year's draft. The 8 they have going forward. It was 11 over the next 7 years.
It's crazy.
So you're not going to keep all those. You have to move on you have to use them at some point. But it's interesting. Are you concerned? And this is something I've been asking the content creators, the journalists around this. Are you concerned about these injuries we've seen for the Knicks? Julius Randle going down with the shoulder injury. OG Anunoby also now with the bone spur, and it was inflammation at first. Now it's bone spur irritation. And I heard Ian Begley talking about that today of SNY, and it didn't sound really good in terms of a timetable for OG right now. How concerned are you, Charlotte, about these injuries? Because I think what fans would want to see, at least I would assume this, is you want to see these guys all play together, get back in the fold, and start building towards the playoffs. So how concerned are you about these injuries to OG specifically and Julius Randle?
Well, let's start with the positive news, just to give Knicks fans something to look
Positivity
forward
is good.
to and keep positive.
Yeah.
Mitchell Robinson, after the All-Star break, is going to be resuming activities, which I think is great. You know, when he was playing, was one of the best centers in the NBA. So really great that Mitch is going to be coming back. On the OG injury, yes, I'm concerned. Yes, 1,000% I am concerned. This is a guy that you need. The Knicks have needed that defensive wing. They've never had someone to take off the pressure from a Jalen Brunson, from a Julius Randle, to guard the other team's best player. OG Anunoby now does that. The problem is this bone spur. It was inflammation, like you talked about, Dexter. But I'm very concerned. I know they just updated to a bone spur. I was actually doing some research on it yesterday. Basically, it's based on like symptoms. Like it can be treated, but it's really on a symptom basis. Hopefully, this All-Star break is coming up, so maybe he'll be able to rest. Hopefully he can play. I'm concerned. Look, Jalen Brunson just hurt his ankle or foot, somewhere. I'm pretty sure it was his ankle, if I'm not mistaken, that he got hurt with his ankle. Then you got Josh Hart going down. He's going to be fine. It seems
Hopefully.
like, but everyone, the injury bug is really catching up. Look, Julius Randle, I think, is in around. We said we were going to get an update. They said they were going to get an update around 3 to 4 weeks, but and look, Quentin Grimes is even injured right now. The Knicks traded him and he's injured.
Right.
So Like, I'm very concerned about the OG trade. Not OG trade. I love the OG trade. Let me clarify. I just am very concerned about the injury because there's not much information on a timetable or what's going on. Or, when I saw maybe, inflammation, it's fine. Maybe he'll be out for 2 games. Now it's extending, and the Knicks need him. They need him. If they want to make, I was listening to what you were saying with Bondy. If the Knicks are contenders, they're a different team without OG Anunoby.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because you've seen the impact. Knicks fans have been so impressed about the impact of what you've seen from him on the court, and then just also what he can do defensively, especially when you talk about maybe playing a team like Boston and defending a Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown on the wing. That really matters a lot. We are talking with Charlotte Steinberg. She is the founder of Let's Talk Knicks. Does a great job there. Also, as I said before, member of the New York Post intern team with the sport. She's done such a fantastic job there. If you have any questions for myself or Charlotte, be sure to let her know in the comments. Bring it in the chat. We thank everybody for watching, liking, subscribing to New York Post Sports. You see the Knicks right here. Welcome
That's a nice
to
looking
Bojan
graphic.
Bogdanovic. It's a nice looking graphic. How does it look to see Mr. Bogdanovic in a Knicks jersey? You got
amazing.
Amazing.
Amazing. This guy's going to be great for the New York Knicks. He gives the Knicks everything that they wanted off the bench. Shooting. And, I know a lot of fans, including myself, I was a huge Quentin Grimes fan because he plays both ways. He can play defense and he can shoot the ball pretty well, but he was disgruntled, so it makes sense why he's out. But right. Bojan, it's just so funny, Dexter. OG Anunoby, Bojan Bogdanovic have been in trade rumors for about a year now, and they thought it would take like multiple firsts to get both of these guys. The Knicks got both of them without giving up any first round. What?
If you would have, Charlotte, that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. If you would have, I remember, this because you're very plugged in and you saw the rumors, and OG was a guy who was linked to the Knicks for, the last couple of years. And I think a lot of Knicks fans even said, oh man, he'd be a great fit. Just last year at the trade deadline, there were talks about trading OG Anunoby for multiple first-round picks, even as much as 3. The Grizzlies were rumored to be interested in him. You make a fantastic point in that, hey, the Knicks got him without giving up a first-rounder. They get Bogdanovic, who many people thought the Pistons would have sold last year's trade deadline for at least
2 first-round picks.
Nothing. Neither of those picks happened. It's really, I don't want to call it robbery or fleecing here. I don't want to go that far and say that. But
I don't know if
I don't think it's that.
Teetering on that, Dexter.
It's teeter. But you know what? The market changes. The market changes, right?
Agreed.
And I think the Knicks were opportunistic in a market that changed. I'll at least say that, right? But it only looks like a fleece depending on how well the team plays after that. Knicks go and win, or they go deeper than people expect. It could look like a fleecing.
Looking back,
we'll see.
I think looking back, when you look at where Leon was given with this team and where we are now, it's just a complete difference. You can't even compare. You had Alonzo Trier on that team. You had RJ. You had a lot of young guys to play around with. Mm-hmm. Now it's a vet-heavy team, and I think that's how Thibodeau loves to run his teams. He likes the vets. He can trust them. I think a lot of fans are just concerned about Alec Burks running the point guard because, again, did not go great last time he was here because Emmanuel Quickley was still on this team. But I'm so excited for the future of this team. It's all about health with this team. I don't know. Just someone get some ice on these guys. Get some, nutritious smoothies with protein in them. I don't know what you need to do, but keep them healthy. I hope Jalen Brunson is okay. OG Anunoby, hopefully we get an update soon. And Julius Randle, hopefully, is recovering well. Obviously, now Quentin Grimes was on the injury report with a sprain, but now he's with the Detroit Pistons. Wish him well. I don't think a lot of people are saying thank you, Quentin Grimes, for everything you've done for the Knicks, because that play when he fell down versus the Miami,
I was at that game.
That was a crazy. I'm telling you, this guy has a lot to prove. I know that he's got a lot to prove, but at the same time, I think he maybe just didn't fit the Knicks on where they're going right now. And I think he kind of maybe was like, I want out. And they were like, okay.
Yeah. And you know what? He was frustrated. There had been reports around that, but he was a good Knick, a good draft pick. The Knicks have used their draft picks. And I think there was always a notion, Charlotte, that the Knicks haven't drafted well, but the Knicks actually, when you look at what they've been able to flip these picks into players who've been productive, whether it's Emmanuel Quickley, Quentin Grimes, RJ Barrett, they've been able to use those good draft picks that they've done, especially later in the first round, and turn them into something. So you got to definitely like what you got there. I saw Jason A. Thanks for checking in on the chat, talking about it feels good to have a team with a deep postseason chance. It's been a minute. It's been a long time coming for the Knicks fan. Charlotte, are you optimistic about this future with the Knicks beyond 2024? I like to try to stay in the present, even as a journalist, and just look at what's going on now. But I think it's hard for the Knicks fan not to look ahead to the future, right? I think it's really hard for them not to do that. Are you excited about, this offseason and beyond, and just how this team could grow in their championship window?
I mean, how can you not be excited about this team? You got Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle both being named to the All-Star team. You got OG Anunoby. You got Bojan Bogdanovic. You got Alec Burks. You got Dante DiVincenzo's like exploding into the shooting guard that the Knicks never maybe thought he could be in the starting role. Precious Achiuwa's finally coming into his own and proving all the doubters of the Toronto Raptors fan base saying he can't play basketball. Well, newsflash, he can actually play basketball, and he's very good and averaging almost a double-double with the New York Knicks right now. And he looks like he's having fun. He's smiling. He has great chemistry going with Jalen Brunson. The Knicks have all their picks. They have two first-round picks in this year's draft. Will probably be in the top 25 at least. I don't expect them to draft those. I think they're going to go for a star. LeBron James is wearing a New York Knicks towel. What is going on in Knickland right now? Honestly, I'm super excited about the future of this team because they're only improving, and they're not even done. They can still add more talent on the buyout market.
Yeah, they still could do a lot on the buyout market. The future is really bright. And it's going to be exciting to hear what these players say. We'll see them take on the Mavericks tonight, what they'll talk about in terms of that, and just how exciting the fans would be. I know my producer Ryan, he's got a quote from Leon Rose. We don't hear often from Leon Rose at all whatsoever. Ryan, could you zoom in a little bit on that so that people can see the quote in the screen? There we go. It said, "We're thrilled to add Bojan Bogdanovic to the Knicks family and welcome back Alec Burks. Bojan brings a tremendous amount of basketball experience to our team, both from the NBA and internationally. He's an elite scorer who has solidified himself as one of the best shooters in the NBA, which will complement our team. Alec played an integral role throughout our 2020-2021 playoff season, understands and embraces the culture here, and will bring a lot of value to our group." So good words to hear there from Leon Rose, who we talked about him doing such a great job as being executive. We don't hear from Leon Rose that often. We do get sometimes something via social media. And, I think the key word that you hear there, Charlotte, and last thing I'll just say before we go, we have to wrap, is culture. And that's the big thing, is that they're trying to have the continuity, another C word there, with the culture. And I think that's good for the Knicks and their fans going forward. That is Charlotte Steinberg. Check her out. Let's Talk Knicks. Do such a great job. She's with the New York Post family right now, doing a great job for us in the sports department as an intern. Charlotte, I had to have you on. I appreciate you making the time. It was a busy day. You were in school. You made it happen. And the trade broke while you were in class.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, sister. Thank you so much.
Appreciate Dexter. Hope we can do this again soon.
We will. We'll definitely
off to work for the New York Post now. Thanks, guys.
Well, glad to have you as part of the team. We definitely hope to be doing some more of these. Thank you, Charlotte. Again, that is Charlotte Steinberg there with the great work. Before we're not done yet with this trade deadline show, we have some stuff to talk about. And I'm really excited about my next guest because he is going to talk a little bit about the sports betting aspect of things, right? Because this is interesting. Did anything happen? We talked to Gerard Hector about that. Did these moves that we saw today change anything in terms of sports betting, in terms of betting on futures with the NBA? We are going to talk to Kevin Walsh right now of Sports Grid, who joins me. Kevin Walsh is out in Vegas because he's a busy man doing stuff around the Super Bowl. Kev, what's up, man? How you doing?
What's going on? We're busy. We're out here in Vegas. A lot of people loving it. Yeah, we've got the Super Bowl coverage going on, but I was glad you guys reached out because I'm an NBA guy through and through, and I needed an escape to talk some deadline.
Yeah, one of your former producers who now works with me, Brian Roskowski, told me, he's like, you got to talk to Kev. You have to get Kev on to talk some NBA with you. He's big as an NBA fan as you. So I got to ask you this, because I know you've been paying attention all day. Mm-hmm. When you look at the moves that went down today, Did it change anything for you or the odds? I haven't looked at all the odds yet. Celtics were the odds-on favorite to win the NBA championship. Nuggets right behind them. Did anything shift for that, or should anything shift with that?
Everything that moved was minimal, and that's because we didn't get the DeJon Murray trade. We knew we weren't getting Zach LaVine shut down a little bit earlier. It takes an all-star, I think, to get moved, Dex, for there to actually be something that gets kind of played out in the market that way, that forces bettors' hands. I think the public winner of the day does feel like the New York Knicks, which I thought was interesting, though. That trade came out in pieces, and it was initially like Alec Burks is gone for Quentin Grimes and picks, and it was like, what did we do? And then they come over the top with Bogdanovic, and it's like, oh, this works out great, right? Because Fournier's not a part of that rotation. Malachi Flynn, not really either. Bogdanovic and Burks are guys that the Knicks are going to look to rely on. Is it enough to get them to the Eastern Conference Finals? I think it absolutely could be. What I'm starting to buy into for the Knicks, in some ways, it's less about them. It's more about what's around them. It's whether or not Embiid gets back healthy, and it's whether or not any of this stuff in Milwaukee works. I think the Doc start has been as close to disastrous as possible in a minimal sample size. And I don't know where you land on it. I don't love today's move for them, forcing a statement out of Damian Lillard of, yes, I'm okay with this, by bringing in Patrick Beverley. That doesn't feel like that's something they needed.
It's funny. I was talking about that a little earlier with some of the other guests we have, and it feels, to use a word, Kevin, it feels desperate, right? We know how bad their perimeter defense is, and they needed to address that. Now, going to get Patrick Beverley, who was at a point a fantastic on-the-ball defender. I'm not sure he's at that same elite level as he used to be. I think you would agree with me on that. But it's just like we had to make a move because things are such a mess there right now. You said you think the Knicks are the winners of the day, right? And maybe in terms of this in the fan perception, when you look at their consensus odds to win an NBA championship right now, it's at plus 2,000, which is far up from where they were at the beginning of the season. Is it good value to maybe take a bet on the Knicks to make it to the conference finals? If you don't want to sprinkle some dollars down on them to go to the finals, what about going to the conference finals? Is that a good value bet?
I think with the way the East shapes up, though, just personally, I'll wait for the bracket to get set, because what'll happen, it's going to happen to someone. Someone's going to draw Miami in round one. Doesn't mean that he can't be beat, but you won't feel as confident on your bet if you end up going, oh, come on, we got to deal with the Jimmy thing. Because Jimmy, it was really interesting last year for Miami, but Jimmy's best round by far, Dexter, was against Milwaukee, right? Actually, close to 38 a game in that series against them. So you don't want to see Miami early, is my feel, especially the Knicks who saw them last year. I understand that the Knicks are a year better, and we just said they made some nice moves today. But I'm going to wait for anything East and West most likely, but definitely in the East, because Miami they've earned the right, I think, to be this sleeping dragon of the conference.
Yeah, and they've shown it 2 out of the last 4 years. They've shown that they can be that sort of sleeping dragon. Is there any teams that didn't make a move? And I'm kind of right here talking about the Lakers today, right? Because a lot of people wanted to know, will the Lakers make a move?
Yeah.
They do nothing. But some people will say, okay, Kevin, as long as you have LeBron James and Anthony Davis and you get to the playoffs, they'll figure out a way to make it work. We saw the run to the Western Conference Finals last year. Would you throw some dollars down on the Lakers to make another run to the Western Conference Finals? Or is the West too tough this year when you look at the teams that are in the top 4 right now?
So I don't even know if the West – the West is tough, right? There's a lot of teams you could sell yourself on. I don't know what the vibe will be for this Lakers team that they didn't make any moves. Everyone is so accustomed, and rightfully so, to whatever team LeBron is on at the deadline makes 1 to 2 really notable trades. This year, whether it's because they don't believe in the team or they're banking on consistency, they did absolutely nothing. So they now feel like the team to watch to a degree coming out of this deadline, because if the effort level rises, it suggests everybody was on eggshells for the deadline. And how could you blame him? D'Lo probably is a bit stunned he didn't get moved. He kind of played himself onto the Lakers with how good he was over the last month. Austin Reeves' name started getting tossed around. Rui Hachimura, because of the contract, has constantly been mentioned. Do these guys all settle in more? Does AD and LeBron settle in saying, all right, these are our guys. We know who we are going to have with us for the long run. I think that is the positive spin. The thing for me, and I don't know if you know this, Dexter, I'm a very, very, very big LeBron James fan.
Oh, I did not know. Okay.
The Lakers should have traded him. It doesn't matter what he wants in this instance. He usually finds ways to block this from even being an option. He didn't have that opportunity this year. Maybe they felt that they wouldn't have been able to get back the necessary assets, but LeBron coming back does not feel dependent on any move the Lakers make unless that is drafting Bronny James. And when his departure, because he's an upcoming free agent, is something that I really don't feel can control, I just don't know if you double down on this situation when they likely could have got the world back for LeBron. Because, Dexter, look at who got traded today. I mean, think about how much better LeBron is than whomever you feel the best player that was moved today ended up being.
Oh no, I agree. To your point of what you're saying, had LeBron got traded, and I would also like to be on the record, I don't think that was necessarily a crazy idea. And a good friend of mine who's a Lakers fan had floated that out too, that maybe this is the time to trade LeBron. Had LeBron got traded somewhere, that would have been an odd shifter. That would have absolutely changed some things for sure. Before we let you go, we appreciate the time. Absolutely. I wanted to go back to you on some things with the Knicks in terms of future bets, because with the impact we've seen from OG Anunoby, who's now hurt with the elbow irritation and bone spurs, a lot of people were starting to say, okay, maybe we should look at this guy to win Defensive Player of the Year. Now with the injury, would you still maybe sprinkle a little something on him? Is there still value there, or is it kind of wait and see for that Depoy award?
So I get the look.
Yeah.
It just feels like Rudy Gobert is going to end up getting – this will be the most respect Rudy gets along with the award, right? He was kind of basically forcing people to give it to him, but then we get to the playoffs and I'd be like, Rudy's, not as good as he's kind of cracked up to be. And to a degree, that could play out again for Minnesota. But that team last year was rocky. And now this year, once again, what do you know? The team that Rudy Gobert is on has the best defense in basketball. That trend has been too real for a half decade plus to ignore. And I just think he's going to ultimately win out in that way. And that's a tough thing. DPOY is one of those awards where there are so many deserving guys, right? Yeah. Like the fact that AD can't really crack through. Bam Adebayo can't get in that mix there. OG, right, who a lot of people believe is the best perimeter defender in basketball, which is so tough to do with the skill level in this league. But Rudy has so much working in his favor now, Dexter. I think it would be really tough for him to break through.
Yeah, he has. He's anchored one of the best defenses in the NBA, although Minnesota's been blowing some leads lately, which has not looked good for them. Another future with the Knicks, I think some sports bettors that might Knicks fans that might be interested in is Coach of the Year. Tom Thibodeau. Right now, is his team playing well, managing all the injuries, all of this stuff? What do you think about his chances and odds? I'm going to throw another one in for you here, too. Brunson for MVP, because that's now starting to get some noise from people. What do you think about those two future props?
I don't know if Thibs will be able to run it back so close to recently winning it. The MVP thing with Jalen Brunson is in the eye of the beholder. He has been moving incredibly though. I think 200-1 down to 100-1 down to 50-1. So there is undoubtedly steam in the market around Brunson. My thing is, Dexter, look, we've all established Brunson is an all-star in this league. But Nikola Jokic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Luka Doncic level, it's just those feel like he is multiple. And that's not, I don't think, disrespect. I think he is multiple tiers away from those guys. And I think it is difficult for Brunson to win that award unless the Knicks were having a historic season record-wise. And I don't mean they have to beat 73-9, right? But pushing towards 65 wins, they didn't have that caliber of a start. I think Brunson has a legitimate chance to be first-team All-NBA. He'll definitely be All-NBA this year on one of those spots. I just think with the, again, for people that bet him at 200-1, they probably feel really good about that move. But actually cracking through, I don't think it would be this year.
Don't think.
I'm sorry, it's so negative, with the Knicks stuff, but I just have to be honest.
Listen, if you're a Knicks fan, Kevin, you have to be happy that you saw the odds on your best player move from 200 to 50. That's pretty positive. I feel like that's pretty, even if he can't win it, which I can agree with you on that, I still feel like that's pretty positive. Last thing for me here, Kevin, trade deadline is now over. You look at the landscape of the NBA. If you had to tell somebody, okay, you're going to throw some dollars down for good value to make a bet on a team to win the championship today on February 8th, who are you going with?
Value only. Value only. I think you take a look at this Dallas Mavericks team. Red hot start to the season. Kyrie gets injured. Not uncommon. If that ends up being his big injury of the year, this team had a really nice deadline day, right? I think it would be them or the Knicks labeled as the winners. PJ Washington, super legit. Gafford can fill in for any of these missed Derek Lively games. Luka is playing at an MVP level. Maybe he can crack through with Embiid obviously now being ineligible due to the games that he's going to miss. Kyrie is having a very nice season. It didn't work last year. It was just too short of a time frame. The defense was disastrous. But value. When you talk about the West for me, so many teams we go, if they can stay healthy. The Clippers can win out. I don't care. I don't trust that they'll be healthy. Phoenix rounding into form. I worry about the health. Even the Lakers, right? The Warriors, all these teams have health concern. But as far as a ceiling go, Luka, we've seen it, Dexter, can be by far the best player in a series.
Yeah, we have seen it. We saw that in that run a couple years ago to the Western Conference Finals, and in beating the Suns on the way there. So that was very impressive. We know what he could do. That is Kevin Walsh, one of the best in the business around sports betting for Sports Grid. Love the work all the guys do at Sports Grid. Kevin, I appreciate you. You're busy at the Super Bowl. You took some time to come on with me. We're gonna have to talk some more NBA future bets soon. I'm gonna have you back on with me. We'll do this again
absolutely, and we'll do the inverse as well, man. We'll keep talking. NBA is about to take over real soon. We'll get this game out of the way on Sunday.
Go. I like that. I'm an NBA guy, so I like that too. But you know what? Before we go, what's your Super Bowl pick? Who do you got for the Super Bowl?
I'm all over the Niners. A lot of people are bouncing back and forth. I'm locked in. I trust them in this spot here. Could it burn me? Sure, maybe. Mahomes burned me last year because I'm an Eagle fan. I don't think I'm picking the Niners because I'm angry, but maybe I am. Either way, I'm on San Fran.
All right, locked in on San Fran. Kev, be good, man. Appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Shout out, B-Rod.
That is Kevin Walsh there doing the fantastic work with Sports Grid here. Got to thank everybody, man. This has been fun. This first ever New York Sports NBA trade deadline show that we did live. We are hoping to do more live shows like this going on. There's been a lot of you that were watching on YouTube, a lot of people watching on Facebook as well as Twitter, commenting in through all the different guests you have. If you missed this, you came in at any point, this will be archived on our YouTube channel, and we'll have other little breakout segments from the interviews that we had today. I got to give some thanks. First of all, I want to thank my whole New York Post sports team, but most specifically, my producer, Ryan Sampson, who did a fantastic job with this today. He's a producer extraordinaire. If you watch our videos, he does a lot of stuff, does Around the Bases with John Heyman, does such a fantastic job on that. So salute to him. Again, salute to everybody who watch, listen. As I said, the whole New York Post sports team. Shout out to Chris Shaw, Justin Terranova, everybody who made this possible. Victoria Shobi with the graphics for the show that she does such an amazing job on. So really, thank you for everybody. This has been a busy trade deadline. I think if you're a Knicks fan, you've got to be very excited about what this team has done in adding the pieces they did today. You heard this from all the guests we had on today. You heard this from Stefan, Bondy. You heard it from JD. You heard it from Gerard. You heard it from Charlotte. You heard it from Brian. Everybody's excited. They're excited about the direction of the Knicks. It appears like there is competency. I think that is a good thing. And that is something I think we'll talk a lot more about in the coming weeks surrounding this basketball team. There also will be a lot of talk about the health of this basketball team and how they look going forward. All-Star break probably coming up at a good time for the Knicks. If you're a Nets fan, I think you're starting to see maybe a little bit more shape in terms of the direction of this team. You hear from Brian Lewis talking about the fact that this is a team looking to make a play and reshape and rebuild and maybe go for a star in 2025. Think a little bit more clarity on what this team is and what they can do after they get off some expiring contracts like a Ben Simmons, like Dennis Schroeder, the upcoming year, who now they have another year, somebody that can play a point guard for them. how this team builds around or with whatever you want to call it with Mikal Bridges is also going to be something really important to watch. As far as New York Got Game goes, we got a good episode coming up this week, which will be next week, which will be dropping on Monday. We're going to talk to John Schmelk, who does a lot of content around the Knicks. You also know him from the Giants. He will be in studio with me. We'll be talking about what the Knicks did at this trade deadline. What are some moves they can look at going forward? What would the buyout market look at going for them as we move forward over the next couple of days? So a lot of questions to still be answered around the Knicks and the Nets. We'll have more coming up with New York Got Game. As I said, hit that subscribe button on the New York Post Sports channel if that's where you're watching. We appreciate your support. Once again, for my producer, Ryan Sampson, who did such a fantastic job on this, I'm Dexter Henry. We'll see you next time on New York Got Game.